What's up guys, my name is Marc Steiner, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a hyperlapse from start to finish. Hyperlapses are a super cool way to up your production value because it's such a unique and different shot, and people are always drawn to it. Now, one of the most frequent questions I get asked about hyperlapses is what gimbal are you using? And obviously you're going to need a very expensive... I'm kidding, I'm totally kidding. All the shots that you saw in the intro, all the hyperlapses I'm ever going to do in my life really, are handheld. NANI? Yeah. Generally, there are two ways to do hyperlapses, photo or video, and I always opt for photo. It gives you more room to play with, it just looks so much better than video, it can be done on any camera and doesn't require a gimbal. And depending on your camera, you're going to be shooting between 5K and 8K raw. That's insane! Shooting a hyperlapse is very similar to shooting a time-lapse. You're going to take a crap ton of photos while moving. If you're shooting on a 24 FPS timeline like I am, that means you're going to need to take 24 photos for 1 second's worth of footage. I usually like to aim for somewhere between 6 and 10 seconds worth of footage, so about 144 photos to 240 photos per hyperlapse. If you're in a pinch, 120 photos will usually get the job done. When I first attempted to shoot a hyperlapse, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I only took about 60 photos, so the hyperlapse was practically unusable and just super jittery and not flattering whatsoever. So it's always better to have more photos than not enough. So what you're going to want to do is switch your camera into single point AF mode and point that one single AF point onto a specific target at what you're moving towards. While you're walking, you want to consistently keep that AF point on the target and make sure that you're holding the camera as level and as steady as possible while you're moving forward. Here's some really helpful tips that I wish I knew while walking and shooting a hyperlapse. The most important thing is to make sure that your steps are the same distance. It looks really bad if you take large, big steps at the beginning of the hyperlapse and then little tiny steps at the end of the hyperlapse to try and get all those photos into one. It just looks super jittery and unprofessional. So make sure that you're taking equivalent steps when you're doing this hyperlapse. The more you shoot hyperlapses, the better you'll get at making that perfect equivalent step. When I'm shooting a hyperlapse, I tend to take smaller steps than I usually do while walking, and this makes sure that I get enough photos for that hyperlapse, but it also means that those smaller steps are going to make for a smoother hyperlapse. I also highly recommend that you use a wide angle lens to shoot your hyperlapses. Not only is it going to make your hyperlapses look even more epic, but it's also going to ensure that you have a wide enough shot to allow for some movement. For this hyperlapse that I took in Paris, I knew that I was so far away that it didn't really matter how big my steps were, so I could take bigger steps and still have more than enough photos to get a clean, smooth hyperlapse. So just use your best judgment when it comes to steps. Now that you've shot your hyperlapse, it's time to actually take all those raw images and edit them. We're going to import them into Lightroom and edit the first photo. Once you're happy with that edit on that one photo, we're going to copy that edit and paste it onto all the other photos in the hyperlapse. Select all the photos that are part of the hyperlapse by holding Shift and then right-click to bring up this drop-down menu. We're going to scroll to Develop Settings and then hit Paste Settings. Now we have a color-graded hyperlapse. Now we have to export our hyperlapse. I usually like to export my hyperlapses at 3000 by 2000 at 80% quality. This means that I have smaller files, a faster export, and it's easier to work with in Premiere, all while still giving me some resolution to play with the crop on a 1080p timeline. You can export at whatever resolution you want. The important thing is that you have the raw files saved so you can come back to them in the future if you so wish. There was only one time that I exported at full 8K resolution, and that was for the hyperlapse of the Louvre Pyramid in Paris. And the reason why I did that was because my shots were so jittery and not balanced and not well framed that I knew that in post I would have to do a lot of work to make it just a usable hyperlapse. So I wanted to make sure that Premiere had the largest resolution possible so it could crop as much as it needed to in order to get that smooth hyperlapse. That, however, was a very extreme case, and you're probably not going to run into that. Alright, now that we've exported our hyperlapse, it's time to turn these photos into video. So we're going to open up Premiere and we're going to import our hyperlapse. Navigate to the folder where you exported the hyperlapse photos, click on the first photo, hit Options, and then check the box that says Image Sequence. All your images are now neatly in one file. Premiere will automatically put this video into a 30p file, so what we're going to do is right-click, hit Modify, and change it to 23.976. What I like to do is make sure that my timeline is set to the other video files I'm working with, so I'll be sure to drag on a file so the timeline conforms to that. If you don't care about this and just wanted to export the hyperlapse in its native resolution and native aspect ratio, you can ignore this step. Now we're going to drag our hyperlapse onto the timeline. Because the hyperlapse is bigger than our timeline, I'm going to bring down the size. If we play back our hyperlapse right now, it looks like a crackhead was shaking the camera while attempting to shoot a video. Also, don't be alarmed if playback is super laggy. This is normal and you can render it out if you so choose. Next, I'm going to go into Effects, type in Warp Stabilizer, and drag that onto our hyperlapse. This is a super intensive process for your computer, so it will take a hot second. Once this is rendered out, we can see that it looks a lot smoother already, but it's still not as smooth as I want it to be. So what we're gonna do is duplicate this clip, right click, and hit Nest. Name this something that you can differentiate from previous clips. Now we're just gonna drag and drop another warp stabilizer onto this nested clip. Once that's finished rendering out, we're looking a lot smoother and more stabilized. So now, all that we need to do is speed this clip up so it looks clean and has a smooth motion. We're gonna duplicate and nest this clip once again, because warp stabilizer and speed cannot be used on the same clip. Right click, hit speed, and we'll speed this up until we're happy with it. I'm starting out with 400% just to see how it looks, and once it's rendered out, we can see that although it looks a lot better, it's still not as fast as I personally want it to be. We're gonna change the speed to 600 and see how that looks. I'm happy with how 600 looks, but you can keep messing with the speed until you're satisfied with the final product. And just like that, you have a smooth functioning hyperlapse that you can put on all of your footage to make it look better. Alright guys, that's it for me. Let me know in the comment section down below, did you find this helpful? Are you going to be shooting more hyperlapses? If you do, be sure to tag me on Twitter and Instagram at Marc Taraz. I would love to see your hyperlapses. I think it's so cool. Let me know if you do. My name has been Marc Steiner, and I will see you next time.